Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to my channel. If you're new, I'm Kelly. This is KBellaBeauty, and this is my fifth time. I think it's my fifth time to try and film this video. I am filming an eyeshadow palette declutter, and I wanted to start 2019 off by kind of curating my eyeshadow palette because I've kind of been into palettes lately. I feel like I go through stages where I'm like super into one thing and then it just kind of transitions. Like I love lipsticks, I was super into blushes and highlights. Right now it's eyeshadow palettes, but I had a few palettes in my collection that I felt like weren't getting enough love, they weren't getting any attention, and I just decided it's time to say goodbye to them and let them go. So I have 5 eyeshadow palettes that I am going to be decluttering or getting rid of, getting them out of my collection, and I will be selling them on my Poshmark. If you're interested, I will list that down below, but I purchased all of these myself, so I decided I would go ahead and resell them on my Poshmark. But if you want to hear about 5 eyeshadow palettes that are leaving my collection in 2019, why don't we go ahead and get started? Okay, so like I said, this is like my 5th time to film this video because you'll probably see this in a lot of my videos for the month of January, but I got a new camera for Christmas, and so this was the first video that I tried to film, and I had a mic and I plugged it into my camera. Didn't turn it on, so I had no sound. So then I filmed it again, the quality was bad, and then another time I filmed it, maybe this is my 4th time, because then another time I filmed it, like the autofocus was crazy. I think I'm in focus. I hope I'm in focus so that we don't have to film this again. But the first palette that I'm going to be getting rid of, saying goodbye to in 2019, was actually a limited edition eyeshadow palette. It was the first collab that Desi Perkins and Katie from Luster Luxe did with Dose of Colors. It is their eyeshadow palette, The Girls. Now, I was super excited to see Desi and Katie collab with Dose of Colors. I love them. They are some of my favorite YouTubers. This eyeshadow palette is really pretty. I got excited to see that they were coming out with an eyeshadow palette, but this just didn't work for me the way that I wanted it to. So this eyeshadow palette, first of all, it has to be used wet. So you either have to wet your finger or use a setting spray. They say using your finger is best. But this shade ensues. The lightest shade is very chunky. You get a lot of fallout. And I really liked the top 2 shades in Turboson and Harpoon, but I just found that I wasn't reaching for this. I mean, I used this eyeshadow palette maybe a total of like 5 times, if that. And I mean, these are all lid shades, so you have to go in with another eyeshadow palette anyway. And so I did pay $28 for this. It was limited edition. You can no longer get it anymore, but they just collabed with Dose of Colors again. They came out with the Friendcation palette. I did pick that up when it was on sale, so I decided, since I have another Desi and Katie palette, this one is gonna get kicked to the curb. The next palette that I'm going to be saying goodbye to in 2019 is this one here by Kylie Cosmetics. This is the Blue Honey palette. Now, I had been wanting to try Kylie's eyeshadows for a really long time. I just didn't see an eyeshadow palette that jumped out at me until the Blue Honey palette. Now this palette is very, very beautiful. I was initially drawn in by these like bluish green shades. Like that's what caught my attention and like sucked me in, but really it's a neutral palette overall. You have a couple like burgundy, copper shades, you have a gold, you have a pinky shade, but it's mostly a neutral palette with a pop of color. However, once I purchased this, I filmed a video on it. I can list that down below if you're interested. I like it. I like the palette, but I purposely did not get the ColourPop collab with Kathleen Lights in Dream Street because I had this eyeshadow palette and I felt like there were some similarities. The difference is the Kylie eyeshadow palette is $42 and the Dream Street by Kathleen Lights is $16. So I found that I wasn't really using this. It just kind of sat on my shelf collecting dust unless I was purposely bringing it out for a video or for a Shop My Stash. So I just decided, since this one's more expensive, I'm gonna let it go. It's time to say goodbye, and I've been wanting to try ColourPop eyeshadow palettes for a really long time, so I probably will go ahead and get the Kathleen Lights Dream Street palette now. The third eyeshadow palette that I am getting rid of, I hope it does not blind you, is a drugstore palette. It's this one here by Milani. It is the Bold Obsessions eyeshadow palette. I got this for my drugstore week that I filmed at the end of March in 2018. I will leave the playlist here if you're interested in checking that out. But these palettes were really, really popular. A lot of people were talking about them, but they were on the pricier end. They're $20 for a drugstore eyeshadow palette. Now, if you're someone who gets a lot of high-end, $20 doesn't really seem like that big of a deal for an eyeshadow palette with, what does it have, 12 shades? But I only used this during my drugstore week. I liked it, it was fine, but I feel like I have all of these shades in other palettes already, and for a while I was holding on to it just because I was like, you know what? I might film another drugstore get ready with me or something and need an eyeshadow palette, so I thought this would be what I would reach for. But there are some shades in here that I haven't even used that I just swatched, and so I decided it's time to let it go, time to rehome it, let someone else enjoy that palette. When Tarte came out with their Tarte palettes, the Tartelette in Bloom, and then the Tartelette Toasted, I knew that I wanted to pick up the Tartelette Toasted palette. It is a very, very warm toned eyeshadow palette, which is right up my alley. This palette was $39, again, not limited edition. It's very, very beautiful. You can get a lot of neutral looks with it, very reflective, comes with a nice big mirror, and I did really enjoy this. I filmed a review on it. This was an eyeshadow palette that I did like. I thought it was right up my alley. The only problem is, the only time I used it was when I pulled it into a Shop My Stash. Otherwise, I wasn't really showing it any attention. I do not like this lightest shade right here in Candle. You get a lot of chunky fallout, much like the Dose of Colors Desi X Katie and Sue's. And then this shade right here in Crackle has chunky gold flecks of glitter, which is not really right up my alley either. So, you know, it's a beautiful palette. It's not bad. It's not bad quality. I was holding on to it for a while because I just thought that I might want to use it at some point in time, but that has not really come. It's just been sitting on my shelf, so time to push that one out, make some more room for some new eyeshadow palettes this year. My fifth and final palette that I am going to be decluttering or saying goodbye to in this video is another limited edition eyeshadow palette, and it is the Violet Voss x Laura Lee collab that came out a couple years ago. This eyeshadow palette was $45 when it released, and I still to this day really like this palette. It's really good to travel with. You get a nice mirror, but you can also fold it all the way, ooh, almost dropped it, all the way back so that you can see all of the eyeshadows that are in this palette. And there are some unique shades that I don't have in my collection anywhere else, like Yoshi and Smashly. Don't have anything like that. I don't have anything like Tickled Pink or Lara Lee. Fleeky, I don't have a gold that's that vibrant and that gold. And like I said, I really enjoyed this palette, and I still enjoy this palette. It's not that I don't like it, it's just that I'm not really using it. This is another palette that I keep telling myself I need to use it, I need to pull it out, I need to use this palette, and it just doesn't happen. So it's limited edition. I probably wouldn't use it in too many videos because of that. So I thought for that reason, it's probably time to part ways with the Violet Voss and Laura Lee collab palette. That is going to do it for this video. These are the 5 eyeshadow palettes that I am decluttering or saying goodbye to in 2019. I just want to make some room. I want to make some room for some new palettes. I want to give some new palettes a home. So that is what my plan is. And like I said, if you're interested in any of these, they will be for sale on my Poshmark, which I can link down below. But if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed, make sure you do so before you go. I do post twice a week for sure on Wednesdays and Saturdays with a bonus video on Mondays or Tuesdays. I've been thinking about possibly changing up my filming schedule, but when I did a poll on my community tab, most people didn't care, so I'll probably just keep it the same if that's the case. But anyway, like I said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!